Hey guys, welcome back. In today's video, we are talking about short sellers flipping long, the $243 target, AMC all-time record, and many more in this video. First, we're taking a look at this. Goldman Sachs activity in the last 6 months is very revealing. Along with GS, many of the big AMC shorting hedge funds have all flipped long. So we talked about this recently in terms of Goldman Sachs has sold off 100% of their puts in AMC, and we have obviously seen how AMC has obviously gone up. Now, this isn't because Goldman Sachs has sold their puts, but rather because AMC was going up. Goldman Sachs has no choice but to, of course, sell the put. When you take a look at what all of these other institutions are doing, again, when you take a look at some of the ones that are involved, we've got companies like Susquehanna, we've got companies like Citadel. They have all sold off all, if not some, of their puts and have gone into now a bullish ratio. Now, this is obviously based on the options when you take a look at it, but this is to show how short sellers who have been constantly trying to push and suppress the price of AMC down has slowly gone to actually try to profit with the price of AMC going up. It seems like they understand what's about to happen. We have obviously talked about the liquidity problem that these short sellers have having. We talked about how Citadel obviously had their pod blow up, how they're having to close over leveraged positions, Bank of America not being able to be in a healthy position to obviously lend out money. So this is what we are seeing right now, how the tides are obviously turning, how they're trying to obviously understand that AMC is on the uprise. Now, when you take a look at this, and this is to just really highlight how important this is. We've talked about how these institutions had just flipped long. We talked about how they put their ratio in terms of a bullish ratio, in terms of their oversight is that AMC is about to go up. We also mentioned Goldman Sachs selling off 100% of their puts. But when you take a look at this, Goldman collaborates with other shady funds like B. Riley and Citadel to route and execute orders while they place their own spoofing orders. So essentially understanding this is companies like Goldman, companies like Citadel, who internalizes the order, who routes the order into the dark pool, is obviously to do so with the intent of suppressing the price. They don't want the bullish pressure to hit AMC. And of course, spoofing AMC, we talked about how that has a negative impact on AMC and ultimately brings down the price of AMC, not allowing it to have true price discovery. But here's where the interesting thing is. So we're seeing companies like Goldman and Citadel who are constantly trying to bring down the price of AMC. Now, in this situation, they will obviously profit if they were to short AMC. But yet, whilst they're still doing these tactics, they have actually flipped long. So it's obviously very contradicting. They're trying to push down the price of AMC, yet they put their positions in the point where if AMC were to go up, they will actually make money. So obviously this doesn't make sense. But when you dive deep into what is actually happening, it's because we understand they are struggling to actually suppress AMC. They understand with everything right now, with the fundamentals of AMC, with the liquidity problems of not only their individual firms, but also their lenders such as Bank of America, they are failing to obviously gain access to capital in order to do their usual tactics. And that's why they flip their positions. And so what we can see is that whilst they are still trying to keep it down, because you have to understand, Citadel can flip the position to bullish, but at the end of the day, they are still net short because of all the billions of synthetics they have created and trapped themselves with. And so they still ultimately want the price of AMC to go down, but they know that they can't do so anymore. So in the meantime, they're trying to be bullish on AMC. They're trying to go with the flow, but we ultimately know that is not going to be the case. They are obviously going to fail. When AMC goes to the $1,000 to $5,000, that's when they obviously have to pay up. Another reason for this is just because how worried they are. When you take a look at this, you can see, hold up, AMC hodlers, 243 seems like the target of the 0.618 fib. Just watch 150 and 243, but primary 243. Now, essentially, just taking a look at the Fibonacci, and it's taking obviously the look at AMC. Now, the thing I want to point out here is about understanding this is Fibonacci using the chart data, using historical data. And so this is really just showing in terms of the volume we have seen in the past, where it can bring AMC to. It can obviously bring AMC to 243. Now, I want to clarify, This isn't talking about the short squeeze. This isn't talking about covering all the synthetics, because this is based off of volume and potentially even synthetics of AMC back in 2021, back in 2020, back in 2022, right? This is not based off of the billions of more synthetics that they have created throughout the years. And so 243 just seems like the real price discovery of where AMC should be based off of fundamentals, based off of past data, based off of past volume, and not the squeeze price. But even then, if AMC were to go to $243, you can already understand how much damage it will do to the short sellers who have shorted hundreds of millions, if not billions of shares of AMC. You can see how much they will obviously have to pay up. And again, going back to our first original point of why they switch themselves with now bullish ratios is because they understand that this is the only way to recoup some of the losses, to minimize their loss. By the end of the day, firms like Citadel, firms like Goldman Sachs, who have already dived too deep into this, I don't see a way of them getting out. For me, it just seems that they want to make sure that they can potentially get some bit of the price action going up to try and cover some of the existing shorts that they have. But if they can't come to obviously a conclusion, if they don't get any help from regulations, from government regulations, then it doesn't seem like they will be able to obviously get out of this. And so the price target of 243 and the understanding of how these shorts have flipped their bullish of their option ratios to bullish ratios, you can understand what is going on. Furthermore, now we talked about how the price discovery of AMC should obviously be at 243 based off of just the chart, not the squeeze, just the chart. And the big reason for this is because of the fundamentals. AMC, they just revised up the weekend from all-time record 322 million to all-time record of $341 million. Furthermore, inclusive of some of the estimates, you can see the Q2 box office is now 766 million ahead of 2024 and is 92.2% above the same date last year. Will we get back to double with the holiday tomorrow and as high as 800 million ahead? I think we might. While others fed you fear, I told you the turnaround was starting in April, and boy has it turned around. So this is obviously taking a look at where we are going in terms of the quarter box office. Now, you shouldn't be surprised that we are seeing this. We talked about how the box office is obviously going to go do even better. But more importantly, not only are we looking at the fact that the box office is, of course, not only recovered, but actually doing records, it's about understanding how AMC is able to make even more right now. And we're talking about even if the box office was the same as last year, AMC would be able to make more revenue and make more profit despite having the same box office. But now, as we are seeing a 92% increase in the box office, we are going to see AMC's revenue not just increase but by 92%, but actually even higher than that. And that's the important aspect. It's about how AMC is able to obviously profit largely from this. And so we talked about how because of the records, we talked about because of the price targets, this is why shorts are extremely afraid and why we're seeing them actually flipping towards the long positions. Everything is obviously starting to all link up right now. All the stuff we talked about with how shorts will be struggling for liquidity. We've talked about how more and more people will realize the potential, the opportunity there is in AMC, and we are seeing that happen right now. Another reason for why potentially they're scared is earlier this month we saw this news. While James did not provide specific names, firms, or incidents under scrutiny, her comments represents one of the clearest public acknowledgements to date that the New York Attorney General's office is scrutinizing the behavior of financial players in the wake of growing public concern. We're talking about how they're reviewing market manipulation allegations. And so already a few firms should pop up in your head when we talk about market manipulations, right? And that's what they are afraid. When you take a look at the stocks that have been affected the most by market manipulations, some of the ones that is obviously up on the list is of course AMC and GME. So if these firms are under the fact that they are going to be investigated, under the fact that they are going to be getting punishment, getting limitations, along with everything we've just talked about. Again, liquidations, the fundamentals of AMC, and of course, so much more, like we talked about FTDs, the tokens, all of these things. On top of that, they will get regulated and limited. This is why it's worrying for them. This is why we talked about it's the end for these short sellers. And at one point, when we will see the fact that they don't have the money anymore, they are getting limited, they are getting punished, and all of these things all combine into one thing all at once, that's when we'll see everything blow up. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching this video. I'll catch you guys next time.